In a house that should have been filled with the gurgling sounds of a newborn, there was only an absence that felt like a physical weight. The air in the nursery grew thick and cold, carrying the faint metallic scent of old pennies. Every parent knows the primal dread of a sudden quiet where there should be life. This wasn't sleep, it was a void. A pocket of reality where sound itself had been surgically removed. The father's breath hitched in his throat as he reached for the crib, his fingers brushing against the damp, cold bars. And in that perfect, oppressive stillness, a new sensation began. The sticky, crawling feeling of being watched from the absolute darkness of the closet door, left just ajar. A nurse's face, etched with a horror that speaks of something beyond medical charts. A mother, her mouth a silent, gaping wound of terror. Her chart, the clinical diagnosis, vocal cord apelleia, harshly circled in red, a stark, sterile label for a living nightmare. In the quiet heart of a small Ohio town, for the last 19 months, that same silent scream has echoed from every crib. Not a single newborn has cried, not one. They open their mouths, they take a breath, and they produce nothing. A heavy, metallic scent hangs in the damp air of Millhaven. This is the story of the place where sound died, the town that swallowed sound. Millhaven was the kind of place you'd drive through and promptly forget. Then came the day when birds stopped singing, and conversations dissolved into whispers. An oppressive quiet settled over the streets, thick as fog, carrying the faint scent of ozone and damp earth. The town of 742 souls was famous for its autumn pumpkin festival and its respectable high school football team. People like Sarah and Ben Carter built quiet, contented lives in this peaceful community. Sarah, a music teacher, filled her home with the sound of piano scales and hopeful melodies. It was a picture of simple, unremarkable happiness, the kind of place where nothing ever happened. Ben operated the town's hardware store, his life filled with simple routines and quiet anticipation. He and Sarah awaited their first child, a future that felt both wondrous and terrifying. One evening, as Sarah played, Ben placed his hand on her swollen belly. A tiny foot pushed against his palm, a perfect, living movement in their quiet home. Their nursery, painted in a warm, cheerful yellow, awaited their newborn. Lily arrived on a crisp Tuesday morning at Millhaven General. Sarah recalls the intense pressure, the final push, and the desperate yearning for that first, furious cry. The doctor placed Lily on her chest, the baby's face scrunching and flushing red with life, her tiny chest hitched with silent sobs. Yet the room offered no echo of her grief. An unnatural hush swallowed every sound, leaving only the stale scent of dust and ozone. The air grew thick and heavy, pressing down with an unseen weight. The doctor and nurses exchanged confused glances that quickly sharpened into alarm. Ben's smile froze, then dissolved completely. It wasn't that Lily was a quiet baby. She was physically incapable of making any sound, diagnosed with a rare, total vocal cord aplasia. Her vocal cords had simply never formed. A 1 in a million tragedy. A heartbreaking anomaly. The air in the room grew heavy with the scent of sterile antiseptic and grief. 2 weeks later, the same silence descended again. The Miller boy was the first. Then came November, December, January. Each month brought another birth, and another, silent, stamp. The pattern became undeniable. A chilling rhythm in the medical records. Something was stealing the first cries from these newborns, leaving only an unnatural quiet in the delivery rooms. Silence fell over the Jenkins twins' house, a thick, unnatural quiet that swallowed all sound. It was the same profound silence noted in the first 3 cases. By the time the 4th family was found, the air in their home carried the faint, metallic scent of ozone and old copper. That was when the CDC rolled into town, their vans a stark contrast to the sleeping neighborhood. Teams in hazmat suits moved like ghosts through the town, testing water, soil, and air with clinical precision. They conducted grim interviews with parents and mapped out clusters of pregnancies on their charts. Dr. Aris Thorne, the lead epidemiologist, became the town's grim messenger, delivering updates in tense press conferences. Each sterile data point they collected whispered of something deeply wrong festering beneath the surface. Dr. Thorne stood at the podium, his weary face illuminated by the sporadic flash of press cameras. In that archival footage, his voice carried the weight of a dead end. We have eliminated contaminants, known viruses, and familial genetic links. A faint, metallic scent of ozone seemed to hang in the air of the recording room. We are now exploring environmental factors, he concluded, the words hanging in a silence thick with unspoken dread. But environmental factors in Millhaven meant one thing: the old Shawnee chemical plant, abandoned since the 90s. Whispers of buried waste had always haunted the town's edges, a secret festering beneath the soil. The community fractured, torn between those who whispered, "It's the water!" and those who refused to see. A metallic tang hung in the air, thick and unnatural, clinging to every breath. The Carters and other silent families became pariahs in their own town, trapped between those who whispered, "Government cover-up," and those who muttered, "God's judgment." Their homes held a new kind of silence, haunted not by noise, but by the absence of a baby's cry, a gurgle, A coup. The air in those houses grew heavy with the scent of ozone and something metallic, like old pennies. Sarah Carter would sit for hours, holding Lily's blanket, feeling its worn fabric grow damp with her tears. Sarah clutched a toy, emitting a harsh metallic melody, a single tear tracing her cheek as she stared at it with desperate intensity. Lily merely watched, her wide eyes filled with unnerving curiosity, completely unresponsive to the grating noise. Her breaking point arrived during a playdate with another silent infant, Leo. The two mothers sat enveloped in a silence so dense it felt palpable, a tangible weight in the still air. Sarah's realization hit with icy clarity. It wasn't just the unsettling cry that troubled her. These infants showed no reaction to sudden noises. A slammed door, a dropped pan. Nothing broke their eerie stillness. A sudden, horrifying realization dawned on Sarah as her eyes locked onto the noisy toy, then Lily. The truth was far more unsettling than they'd imagined. It seemed the sound existed for them alone. Armed with only a cheap digital recorder, Sarah and Ben drove through the night toward the town's edge. The Shawnee plant materialized from the darkness, a skeletal silhouette against the moonless sky. Ben recalled his cousin Mike, the geologist, had hinted at something he couldn't say officially. Seismic readings had revealed unnatural, hollow spaces beneath the north field, adjacent to the facility's abandoned waste site, not natural caverns. Something constructed. The air carried the faint, metallic scent of old rust and damp earth, clinging to the back of the throat. They scaled the barrier, their flashlight beams slicing through the oppressive darkness like surgical knives. Each movement was measured, the only sounds the scrape of fabric against metal and the distant, rhythmic drip of water from a broken pipe. They uncovered a corroded ventilation shaft, nearly swallowed by the earth. Sarah lowered the recorder into the abyss, its microphone set to maximum sensitivity. She triggered a pre-recorded track, a violent blast of white noise, the most abrasive sound she could find. They waited, straining to hear any response from the void below. Only a hollow, metallic echo answered. Then, absolute stillness. On the recorder's playback, the white noise blares, then distorts into a guttural warble. The sound is progressively sucked away, like water vanishing down a cosmic drain, leaving behind a vacuum of pure, digital silence. The air in the room grows thick and stale, carrying the faint, metallic scent of ozone. It wasn't emitting something, it was absorbing it, not just blocking the signal, consuming it. Sarah's gaze met Ben's, her face ghostly in the flashlight's wavering light. Then the earth itself began to stir, a deep, subsonic hum that vibrated through their bones before it reached their ears. The soil shifted with impossible precision, forming perfect concentric rings that pulsed outward from an unseen center. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and damp earth, their breath catching as the vibration intensified. Not through the ears, but deep within the bones and teeth. An imperceptible frequency bypassed the auditory system entirely, vibrating the amniotic fluid. This targeted resonance left the mother untouched, but insidiously focused on the fetus's developing inner ear and vocal structures. It dissolved the very blueprint for sound before it could ever form. At 8 weeks pregnant, Sarah had kept her secret completely to herself. Now, hundreds of miles from Millhaven, she sits in a sterile Boston consulting room. A specialist points to the ultrasound screen, the monitor casting an eerie glow across their faces. His voice is gentle, but the words hang in the heavy air. The structures look perfect, Sarah. The cochlea, the vocal folds, all developing exactly as they should. Yet the Millhaven Anomaly remains officially unsolved, a mystery sealed away in darkness. The town was bleeding out its people, leaving behind a husk of empty streets and abandoned homes. Children like Lily, trapped in permanent silence, were learning to speak with their hands in a world they would never hear. Their condition was irreversible, a quiet sentence passed down by the town itself. Lily, now a toddler, sat motionless in a shaft of sunlight, dust motes dancing around her like silent, glittering ghosts. Dust motes swirled in the slanting light as she lifted her head, feeling the faintest tremor through the wooden floorboards. A smile bloomed on her lips, beautiful, joyful, and utterly soundless. But one question torments every parent who hears this tale, the same question that stalked Sarah Carter until she fled the county. What is truly worse, a poison that alters the flesh, or something that hollows the soul? Or perhaps it was a force, buried and forgotten, that meticulously, selectively, edits the very fabric of human experience? Millhaven didn't merely steal a voice, it stole a sense. It excised an entire dimension of existence before that life could even draw its first breath. The air hung thick with the scent of ozone and old rot, a testament to what was taken before it could ever be. We dread what we can hear, but the true terror is what listens back. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and damp earth. A low, rhythmic scratching echoed from the walls, like claws testing the boundaries. Lily's breath hitched as she realized it wasn't random noise. It was counting. Something ancient and hungry had been waiting in the silence, listening all along. A profound stillness settled over the scene. The air felt thick and heavy, devoid of any movement. It was the kind of absolute quiet that made the ears strain, searching for a sound that wasn't there. Then, as if a spell had broken, the video's end slate materialized, stark against the void.